Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Well, before last night's debate, we learned that about 40% didn't even know the names of the vice presidential candidates. We had 41% didn't know who Governor Pence was, and 46% didn't know who Tim Kaine was. I don't know that changed very much because we see today that it was the least watched vice presidential debate since the year 2000. They said about 36 million people watched. What did they see? Well, we got a lot of reports as this is going out. There were a lot of amazing things that came out of the debate last night. We had Senator Kaine, and of course he's a former governor, saying that Donald Trump had said that Social Security was a Ponzi scheme. Yeah, it's a classic Ponzi scheme. You need to understand what's involved with Social Security. A lot of very interesting things, but one of the reports that we had, we talked about how Kaine said that Hillary Clinton was a strong leader. She had gone toe-to-toe with the Russkies. And as I pointed out, yeah, she didn't do too well, did she, for us? She did pretty good for herself, for the Clinton Foundation. They got massive amounts of money when they gave Putin 20% of the United States uranium, control of that. And that's what we see over and over again. They try to make Putin a demon, and yet we see that they get their hands handed to them every time they try to interact with him. The key thing, though, is that they've restarted the Cold War. And as I thought about that phrase, toe-to-toe with the Russians, it really reminded me of the previous Cold War that we had that was really characterized by Dr. Strangelove. And I want to play a clip for you that really shows what, if you don't know Dr. Strangelove, this is how you go toe-to-toe with the Russkies.
Hillary Clinton has gone toe-to-toe with Russia.
Well, boys, I reckon this is it. Nuclear combat toe-to-toe with the Russkies.
She went toe-to-toe with Russia as Secretary of State.
I got a pretty fair idea that something doggone important's going on back there.
She went toe-to-toe with Russia and lodged protests when they went into Georgia. And we've done the same thing about Ukraine, but more than lodging protests, we've put punishing economic sanctions on Russia that we need to continue.
Target in sight. Where in hell is Major Kong?
Hey, what about Major Kong?
Well, boys, I reckon this is it. Nuclear combat toe-to-toe with the Russkies.
You notice that Tim Kaine is really happy about the fact that we've restarted the Cold War in Crimea. We've got sanctions, which in and of themselves are really an act of war. We've had General Petraeus in the last week saying it's not too late for us to declare a no-fly zone and to just shoot down Russian planes over Syria. Understand, it's the Syrian government that invited the Russians there to help them fight ISIS. ISIS, our proxy, Al-Qaeda and ISIS, our proxy to overthrow the Syrian government. And of course, Hillary Clinton was a big part of the creation of ISIS with what she did in Libya. But, you know, as we look at this, and he repeats this 3 times, this phrase, going toe-to-toe with the Russkies, I thought, you know, is this a Freudian slip, or is he really channeling Dr. Strangelove? I'm not really so sure. It seems that they are rechanneling this whole mad mindset, mad in the sense of insane, mad in the sense of mutual assured destruction. And it's not just Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine. Take a look at this general, what he had to say yesterday.
We'll stop you, and we will beat you harder than you've ever been beaten before. Make no mistake about that. Other countries, Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea, went to school on us. They closely watched how we fought in '91 and '03. They studied our doctrine, our tactics, our equipment, our organization, our training, and our leadership. And in turn, they revised their own doctrines, and they are rapidly modernizing the militaries today to avoid our strengths in hopes of defeating us at some point in the future.
Now, that was Army Chief of Staff General Mark Milley. And when I looked at that, I couldn't help but recall George C. Scott, again, in that same movie, Dr. Strangelove, which was a perfect black comedy showing the insanity of the Cold War that we have now restarted. Here's General George C. Scott doing, about 50 years ago, doing General Mark Milley.
The Rusky talks big, but frankly, we think he's short of know-how. I mean, you just can't expect a bunch of ignorant
peons to understand a machine like some of our boys. And that's not meant as an insult, Mr. Ambassador. I mean, you take your average Ruskie, we all know how much guts he's got. Hell, look at all of them Nazis killed off, and they still wouldn't quit.
Can't you stick to the point, General?
Well, sir, if the pilot's good, see, I mean, if he's really sharp, he can barrel that baby in so low. I mean, you ought to see it sometime. It's a sight. A big plane like a 52. Vroom! It's jet exhaust frying chickens in the barnyard.
Now, we might laugh at that, but you know, this really isn't a laughing matter. The Cold War was not a laughing matter. I remember as a child, the Cuban Missile Crisis. I was in Florida at the time, and we were told, even though the school was just maybe about a half a mile from where I lived, we were told we wouldn't have time to get home. We'd have to bring clothes to school. They gave us duck and cover drills. You know, if a nuclear bomb happens, just duck down and cover. You can stick your head in the metal desk, they told us. And even though I was in elementary school, I thought, you know, what is that for? Is that so they can identify what's left of my dental records, perhaps, if it's inside of a metal desk? That's the insanity, the mutual assured destruction that now we see being revived by the Democrats as well as Republicans. The Russians understand how serious this is. During the first Cold War, the bomb shelters that were being sold to Americans, created by Americans, that was something that individuals are doing. We never had any civil defense drills here in the United States, unlike in Russia and other countries. And they are getting very serious about it as well. They take these threats very seriously, and they should. We see that Russia is holding a massive nuclear war exercise. This came out last couple of days, involving 40 million people. And this is as a direct result of the revival of the Cold War and all of this tough talk that I think is really very serious when you look at what's happened in the Ukraine, in Crimea. If you look at the tough talk about shooting down Russian planes over Syria, as we act as Al-Qaeda and ISIS's Air Force. It was the Americans who broke the ceasefire. It was the Americans who attacked a Syrian base that had long been a Syrian base, turning it over to ISIS. That was the initial breaking of the ceasefire. Now it is done. And as we look at this massive exercise, a civil defense exercise, 200,000 emergency services personnel and soldiers as part of this 40 million people here, 50,000 pieces of equipment during a massive civil defense exercise. So they take that seriously. And yet, remember when we had Mark Dice back in 2015, June of 2015, a little over a year ago, talking to people in one of his reports in California and saying, you know, Obama would like for you to sign this petition so that we can nuke the Russians. He said, we just need a couple more signatures to support President Obama's new plan to deal with Russia. We're going to launch a preemptive nuclear strike, and we'd like for you to sign this petition to encourage Obama to do that. He says this is the only way that we can maintain our superiority, he tells the people as they're signing the petition. He says, you know how Russia has been threatening the U.S. lately? And he tells this to a guy, and the guy says, yeah. And the guy says, I've been American all my life. Okay? This is the insanity, folks. This is the insanity. We don't take how dangerous what Hillary Clinton and the Democrats are doing, and quite frankly, a lot of Republicans are in on this as well. The only person who is pushing back against this and saying, can't we talk to the other side and try to de-escalate? We used to call that détente, an easing of tensions. Isn't that a good thing? Isn't that a rational thing? Is that erratic behavior? No, erratic behavior is what we saw with these characters from Dr. Strangelove. Erratic behavior is what we're seeing from Hillary Clinton and from Tim Kaine and from the top Senate Democrat of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. This is Ben Cardin. He is from Maryland, and he ripped Russia today in a speech, saying the U.S. must revisit its approach to the Cold War rival. If you don't think that I'm serious about this, look at this from Politico. He says, Russia clearly has no interest in counterterrorism cooperation, humanitarian relief, or political progress in Syria. He said Vladimir Putin's Russia is not a partner for peace. And the Obama administration announced on Monday that it was suspending its bilateral negotiations with Russia over a Syrian ceasefire. I would say that they probably decided to suspend that when they decimated the Syrian base on behalf of ISIS. He says in apparent retaliation, Putin has now announced that Russia was scrapping a 16-year-old nuclear non-proliferation agreement with the U.S. involving destroying plutonium stockpiles. And on Wednesday, Russia said it was suspending an agreement with the U.S. to cooperate on nuclear and energy research. Now, Cardin went on to say that this was largely, he's long been advocating punishing Russia over things like hacking. And he says one option is likely to impose economic sanctions on Russia over its assistance to Assad in Syria, because, of course, they're there fighting ISIS, and we can't have that. Now, understand that this is over things like hacking. Remember Hillary? Listen to what she had to say about what she would do, what it would require for her to go to war.
You've seen reports. Russia's hacked into a lot of things. China's hacked into a lot of things. Russia even hacked into the Democratic National Committee. Maybe even some state election systems. As president, I will make it clear that the United States will treat cyber attacks just like any other attack. We will be ready with serious political, economic, and military responses.
Isn't that chilling? She says that cyber attacks are going to be treated like a physical attack, like any other attack, she said. And she said, we are going to be ready with serious political, economic, and military responses. Now, when you look at this, is she going to go to war because somebody hacked her emails? We've already seen the Bushes go to war in Iraq because Saddam Hussein threatened his father. Took it personally, because that's the way these people are, these gangsters who are running our country. But that is the insanity that we're looking at. The fact that a cyber attack would be used as a basis for a full-on military attack, a war with Russia. Understand that it is not simply, as we look at the Democrats constantly saying it's the Russians who are hacking us, and we need to step up sanctions, we need to be ready to go to war against them. Understand that's not really the case. Today, the New York Times, in talking about perhaps a second Snowden, said an NSA contractor has been arrested in a possible new theft of secrets. The FBI secretly arrested a national security contractor in recent weeks and is investigating whether he stole and disclosed highly classified computer codes developed to hack into the networks of foreign governments. Now, besides the fact that this embarrasses the NSA, remember it was just a few weeks ago that we saw on some dark parts of the web an auction of software that was being used to hack into, that the NSA used to hack other code. In other words, the NSA's hacking code was hacked. How do we know when we see these hacks who is behind them? Are we going to launch a nuclear war? At least during the Cold War, the thing that was going to trigger a nuclear war or response from us was an actual attack, physical attack. And they did everything they could to keep that from happening on a hair trigger. And now we have somebody like Hillary Clinton, someone who Julian Assange says, we don't know about Donald Trump, but we do know that Hillary Clinton hates free speech. And she's one of the worst warmongers we have ever seen. And we have seen her set the Middle East on fire, and we could see her start a third world war if she becomes president. They say this is not only an embarrassing prospect because it's the second time that this has happened, but they go on to say during the FBI raid of his house, agents seized documents and digital information stored on electronic devices. That's interesting. Interesting parallels there, isn't it? A large percentage of the materials found in his house and car contained highly classified information. Unlike Hillary, I guess. Do you think that he had anything that was more classified than Hillary Clinton's documents? And remember, we learned just last Friday that Cheryl Mills and other close assistants of Hillary Clinton had been given immunity by the FBI so that they could get access to their computer. And at that point, many of us said, why would they have to give them immunity so they could have access to their computer? The FBI would simply take it. And here we see this happening. That's the way the FBI operates with everybody else. And yet, with people that are connected to Hillary Clinton, they find an excuse to give them immunity because they do not want to expose the person who is behind all this. They go on to say that initially he denied having taken the documents and the digital files. Kind of like Hillary Clinton, isn't it? The agency later said that he stated that he knew he was not authorized to have the materials, but he didn't think that they were classified. He denied that they were classified initially, just like Hillary Clinton. And his lawyers said he loves his family and his country. There is no evidence that he intended to betray his country. See, he didn't have any criminal intent, so the FBI ought to let him off just like they let off Hillary Clinton because they said, yeah, she didn't really have any intent to do any harm, even though she released thousands of documents that were some of the most highly classified levels you can have beyond top secret, above top secret, endangering people's lives. No, it was Hillary Clinton. She is given a pass. They go on to say that Mr. Martin, the individual that was arrested, is suspected of taking highly classified source code developed by the agency to break into computer systems of adversaries like Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. Think about that. The NSA is already doing what Hillary Clinton says she will consider to be an act of war and will retaliate not only with political and economic sanctions, but with military strikes. And yet, our government is already doing that to the countries that we are threatening with war if we say that they did it to us. And we don't even know for sure if it would be an attack from them when the hacks occur. I guess what we have going on here is a kind of rewriting of the golden rule. Instead of do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. So I guess we could call it the Hillary warmonger rule. Do unto others whatever you wish, but if they do it to you, it'll be war.
Ladies and gentlemen, this Sunday is the biggest presidential debate in United States history, and Infowars.com/show will have complete coverage for you, starting at 4 o'clock Central with the Alex Jones Show, and then rolling right through the entire debate, even afterwards taking your phone calls. Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump, round 2 from St. Louis, Missouri, Washington University. This is the most anticipated debate ever, and we're going to have complete coverage for you at Infowars.com/show, and also the new Infowars Live app. We're going to have boots on the ground, and we're going to have the entire Infowars crew in studio covering the debate, breaking down the things that the two candidates say in live time. Are you going to be stuck at home watching football, or are you going to be engaged in the Infowar? Infowars.com/show, Infowars Live app, complete coverage of the presidential debate, round 2, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump.
In the past decade, we have witnessed unparalleled scientific discoveries in the area of health. But no one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. DNA Force is one of the most expensive formulas to produce. Some of the ingredients in DNA Force are $12,000 a kilogram. We are using the coveted, patented, only American source of PQQ, CoQ10, and more. You want the best that's out there at the lowest price anywhere? Well, we're bringing you a total win-win. The ultimate value, cutting-edge, trailblazing game changer that also supports the InfoWar. We have produced a limited run of DNA Force, and it will take up to 12 weeks to produce more once we sell out. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139.